What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Sean O'Malley believes the rivalry with Petr Yan will last years. UFC 280 in October will be a blockbuster event with multiple mouth-watering fights on the card. Perhaps the most highly anticipated non-title fight on this card is the bantamweight clash between former champion Petr Yan and up-and-coming fan favorite Sean O'Malley. Yan is coming off a loss to Aljamain Sterling at UFC 273 via split decision, but he's as game as they come and is only looking to get back into title shot contention. In the meantime, he believes he's going to put an end to the Sugar Show in Abu Dhabi in October. Meanwhile, O'Malley is coming off a no contest against Pedro Munoz at UFC 276. On account of several accidental eye pokes. But now that this fight is set, O'Malley believes that he and Yan will have a rivalry that will last a few years and won't end at just one night. This is what he told BT Sport about it.
I think we're gonna fight multiple times. I think he's 28, 29, 27. The bantamweight division is the best division in the UFC. If I had to predict, I think me and Petr will fight multiple times. He's not going anywhere. He's not gonna go below top 5 ever. Once I'm up there, I don't believe I'll drop down either, so.
O'Malley has been poking fun at Petr Yan for a while, and Yan himself agreed to this fight even before the O'Malley-Munoz fight, provided that Sugar would win. Still, O'Malley had been antagonizing the Russian ex-champion since at least the middle of 2021, and Yan is not one to let things just go. What do you think of O'Malley's comments saying that there will likely be multiple fights between these two men? And who do you think will win at UFC 280? Sean Strickland says he'd fight Alex Pereira the same way. The UFC 276 middleweight title shot eliminator between Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira had a lot of eyeballs on it. It was an intriguing matchup of a pure kickboxer entering just his third UFC fight against a pure MMA fighter in Strickland, who was ranked in the top 5 of the division going into that fight. Many people believe that Strickland would be Pereira's toughest test to date, but it turned out to be anything but that, as Pereira knocked out Strickland in the middle of the first round with a beautifully timed and strong left hook. It was Pereira's quickest win in the UFC, and one that put him firmly as the #1 contender for the undisputed UFC middleweight belt. And he's earned a date against Israel Adesanya to be decided. Now, weeks after that event, would Strickland do anything different? This is what he said about that to the Schmo.
It sucked, but I do nothing different. At the end of the day, I said I would stand and bang with anybody. I didn't say I was gonna win. No, but I would do nothing different besides keep this hand up, I said I'd stand and bang with him, and I'll stand and bang with him. And if I ever fight him again, I'm gonna stand and bang with a big motherfucker.
The loss put an end to Strickland's 6-fight win streak in the UFC. What do you think about Strickland's comments here? And who do you think he should fight next? Anthony Lionheart Smith suffered a broken ankle in UFC 277 loss. The light heavyweight fight between Anthony Lionheart Smith and Magomed Ankalaev was thought to be one of the biggest fights on the UFC 277 card last Saturday. Ultimately, Ankalaev got the W after Smith appeared to have hurt his lower leg in an exchange early in the second round. He clearly was having trouble standing on that leg, and it led to a TKO loss at the hands of the big Russian. Smith relayed to Ariel Helwani what happened in the loss. This is what Helwani tweeted about his interaction with Smith following that UFC 277 event in Dallas, Texas last week. Anthony Smith suffered a broken left ankle Saturday night in his fight against Magomed Ankalaev. Smith tells me this evening it will require surgery. The former title challenger was thought to be once again knocking on the title shot door if he got past Ankalaev. Instead, Smith will likely be out for several months. Meanwhile, Magomed Ankalaev improved to a 9-fight win streak, including wins over the likes of former title challengers Thiago Santos and Volkan Oezdemir. His lone loss in his career came at the hands of Paul Craig in his UFC debut all the way back in 2018. What are your thoughts on this fight now that it's just a few days old? And who do you think Ankalaev should fight next? And when he returns to action, who do you think would be a good opponent for Anthony Lionheart Smith? Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to stay up to date on all of the latest fight news. Chael Sonnen believes that Hasim Rahman Jr. just blew his entire career. The Hasim Rahman Jr. Jake Paul boxing fight was canceled earlier this week over weight issues, and Chael Sonnen is fuming over it. Sonnen goes on to lay out what took place. Essentially, when the fight was signed and sealed, Rahman weighed a reported 216 pounds, 216, and was contractually obligated to fight at 200 pounds. About a week out from the fight, he weighed about 215 pounds, and the New York State Athletic Commission did not allow this fight to happen at 200 pounds, so they settled at 205 and Jake Paul accepted. Then, Sonnen stated it was reported that Rahman Jr. would allegedly weigh in at 215 pounds the day before the fight and would not have any intention to fight at 200, 205, or even 210. Of course, there was a financial burden involved here, so Rahman Jr. would basically be fighting for free. Then, Sonnen surmises that on fight night, Rahman Jr. would basically say, "Pay me or I won't fight," which would leave Jake Paul and his team holding the bag. Sonnen goes on to say that this is an old trick that fighters from way back used to pull. Then, Sonnen stated this.
So Rahman Jr. that has a financial obligation at a minimum to himself, I don't know his personal life, at a minimum he has it to himself, has blown his entire career. He has blown his entire reputation.
Sonnen goes on to say that no other organization or promotion would actually work with Rahman Jr. if he's perceived to have tried to pull this off. Sonnen goes on to blame Rahman Jr.'s team for trying to pull a fast one on everyone and was blown away at why they would do this. Sonnen also states that he thought Rahman Jr. could have won this fight, but ruined his chances of ever being in another main event fight and perhaps ruined it for other boxers to fight Jake Paul. What do you make of Sonnen's comments here about this? James Krause talks about his retirement from MMA. After 13 years in the sport, James Krause called it a career. He's been in the UFC since 2013 and finished his career having gone 7-1 in his last 8 fights dating back to 2015, including a win in his last fight. Krause coached Brandon Moreno to an interim flyweight title victory over Kai Kara-France this past weekend at UFC 277, a moment no doubt he would cherish. But while on the MMA Hour this week, Ariel Helwani asked him flat out, is he retired from the sport, and if so, why? And this is part of the answer that Krause gave.
I wanted 3 things out of this. Whenever I call it quits, I said I wanted to be financially free. I've done that. I'm making. To be honest with you, I would probably lose money if I fought.
Wow.
I wanted to go out on my own terms. I didn't want somebody to be like, "Hey James, you lost 3 in a row." You know what I mean? And I wanted to retire in the UFC.
Krause goes on to say that he fulfilled all 3 things. He also says that injuries upon injuries have made this decision a lot easier and that he is 100% focused on coaching. He also stated that seeing moments like the one that Brandon Moreno enjoyed this past weekend gives him the fulfillment he once found with fighting. What are your thoughts on James Krause's retirement? Thank you so much for joining us today. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all the latest news from the MMA Zone. See you next time.